Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Ivan Bernal. He is one of the voice actors for a phenomenal uh, uh, podcast storytelling. I don't even know exactly how to call it. Marvel Wolverine La Larga Noche, which you guys
Right.
may have already come to know as Marvel Wolverine: The Long Night. That was released in 2018. Thank you so much, Ivan, for your time.
Thank you, Emmanuel, for having me. I'm very excited to be here and
I'm,
share with
I'm
all your fans, what we're working on.
yeah, I'm super excited to talk about this because I'm all about Latin representation because it's especially in superheroes.
Yes.
It feels so rare, right?
I know. Yeah, so I'm excited, especially that Marvel decided to release this podcast during, Hispanic Heritage Month. So to be part of something like this, my mind is still like processing everything that's happening. So I'm very excited to be here and talk about Wolverine, The Long Night, or Wolverine, La Larga Noche, obviously.
So it's very important to note that this is Marvel's first ever scripted Spanish language podcast, which is huge.
That's right.
And so let's talk a little bit about. We'll get into a little bit more why that's important, but let's talk
Yeah,
about the story a little bit. It is written by one of my favorite writers, Benjamin Percy,
right.
and the Spanish version, La Larga Noche, is being directed by Alejandra Lopez,
Correct.
or was directed. Tell me a little bit about your character and about the story itself.
Well, the story itself, in a nutshell, is basically we see a different version of Logan, aka Wolverine. He's on his way to redemption. He's like every human being. He wants to start over. He wants to leave behind his past, everything that he's been through. So he runs off to basically the end of the earth, or to Burns, Alaska, to kind of like start over, start a new life, a new slate. So he ends up working at this fisherman's for a living. He's a new guy in town, and around the time that he arrives, there's a few murders that keep happening very constantly. So they send these two investigators to find out, wait, what the hell is going on? This is more than just like regular killings, if you would. There's no gunshots, there's no knives, there's no people being poisoned or being kidnapped. It's obviously the same sort of way of murdering people. So they're thinking like, wait, is this a bear? Is this some kind of like weapon that we're not aware of? So let's send somebody to investigate. So I'm kind of like the guy that takes on these two investigators around town and show them where everything is at, because that's where I grew up. My
Mhm.
character Bobby Reid, he's a new deputy in town. He also starting over. He moved to start as a police, and he's learned a lot about the case as he goes along. And then there's more than meets the eye, let's say, because it's not so black or white. There's always, and then you start thinking like, wait, so what is it? Is it this new guy that people are kind of like contemplating why he behind it, or is it something else? And then as the story develops, we get to see that there's definitely more than just what we think we know.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna let the audiences enjoy that for themselves. The cool thing is that we can follow it in English and Spanish, also in print. So that's really cool. You held it up
Yeah.
just a few seconds ago.
Yep,
Um,
right here. I was
I,
able to grab one of the few copies because like the English version was so successful that they turned it into a comic book, and it's
mhm.
sold millions around the world. So when I got the gig, and I knew it was Marvel, because at first I didn't know it was Marvel, let
Oh,
alone I
okay.
knew it was about Wolverine. So once I got all my, my confirmations and the contract and the official name, I was like, wait, I need to, prepare myself and really dig into the story and see what this is about. So I was able to listen to the original podcast in English and, obviously go through the comic book, which helps to visualize exactly what's
Yeah.
going on, and for me as a performer to be able to sell it with just my voice, which was very tough, but we got it done.
So that's my next question is where did you find your voice for your character?
Well, I had to go through a process of castings. The casting director was very respected Carla Hull, who cast Selena, Gentify, Narcos, all these big shows. So when I heard she was behind this casting and my agent sent it to me, I'm like, please send me right in. I want to be considered whatever I need to do. I booked a studio and I got, a friend engineer of mine to help me so that the sound quality was amazing. They sent me about 10 pages of script. I was like, okay, let me prepare, make my notes, make sure I send them the best takes. And then a few weeks later, of course, I got the notification that, okay, they want to consider you, so you're on a bell. They want to know if you're available these potential dates. If it's about a month of recordings, if you got the part. I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Fingers crossed. This time I didn't know it was Marvel or that it was
Oh.
Wolverine, anything. It was called Aurora, Spanish podcast, 10 episodes, SAG, all that thing. And then eventually, once I get the confirmation, I get an email from my agent and the production company. Welcome to Marvel's Wolverine, La Larga Noche. And I was like, what, man? Like, you feel like this is Marvel? This is Wolverine, one of my favorite, mutants, because I love X-Men.
Mhm.
So I was super excited. And then, of course, that's when I started to panic a little bit because I'm like, okay, wait, okay, now I proved them that I can kind of get to what they want me to do, but I really need to come into the studio with guns blazing and really prepare and work on my stuff. So that was amazing.
So based on the weight of the person doing the casting, that's really what sold you. Well, yeah, I mean, given the
Yeah.
names of the properties you've
Yeah,
said,
because I didn't know it was. I mean, if it would have been Marvel related, like if they would have sell it as Marvel project, I'm sure hundreds, if not thousands, of actors, not just out in LA, but all around the country or even Mexico, Latin America, would have been like, I want to be part of it, But they kept
mm,
it really secret, and until you sign all those NDAs, and they were like, okay, well, here's the contract, here's the first script, because they send us one script at a time. It was
mhm.
that kind of like, even though like I knew that it was already a podcast. There's still the Spanish translation was not sent to us until we were like maybe 2 days before we went to the studio to record it. So that was pretty cool.
Okay, so was this all done in studio for the recording? Because I know that the English one sometimes recorded even outdoors to get
Oh
kind of
yeah,
that.
yeah. Well, we unfortunately didn't go through that process because we had to do it during the pandemic. So
Right.
the
Okay.
production team did. They would send us these kits on a very like a huge box with instructions, and somebody would deliver it to your home studio or wherever I was at that time recording, and then they with instructions to how to set it up. A tripod. There was a tablet in there. There was a phone so that we could FaceTime the other actor and see
Oh.
the director here. Have my lines on a different tablet. Um, a light, everything was so well done. So we were able to work remotely, to be safe, and because we have
Yeah.
to keep everybody during the pandemic, as safe as possible. So we did the best that we could. We had an engineer connected remotely to listen to all the sound quality. The director was in Puerto Rico. The Marvel people producers were in Chicago, I believe. Another producer in New York. So it was almost like a Zoom every time we recorded, but with different moving parts. So it was pretty interesting. Definitely a challenge, but
Do you, do
so
you have do you have your own studio at your place, or did you go to a studio itself to record?
yes, so they booked me a place in a studio where I was able to set up, a professional
Okay.
booth because the sound had to be consistent with the other actors and wherever they were. I believe Joaquin was in Mexico, and then he was filming Suicide Squad somewhere else. So at one point he was there. I know Bruno Bichir, who's another actor that I work with, was here in LA as well, but working somewhere else up north. So thanks to technology, we were able to, connect at one point or another and make it
Very
work.
very cool. Because I know that some actors, voice actors, had to makeshift things in their closet or whatever just
Yes,
to try to record.
you have to improvise sometimes, man. Like if you don't have access to a studio or to a friend that has a professional studio, you have to like literally lock yourself in a closet, put a bunch of blankets or towels to get the sound as good as possible. Because the better quality you provide nowadays, the more chances of you getting the job, because
Mhm.
they want to work remotely. They want to know if you have access to equipment and all that stuff. So I had a bit of an advantage in that sense.
I think one of the things that struck me about the podcast is when I first heard about it and I was going to listen to it. I don't know if why I had the kind of the idea that it was going to be very um like
Boring.
monotone Spanish, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
very very clean, very almost like when you get those subtitles and it's
Right.
very. But
Yeah.
I was so impressed with when everyone's accents came through very
Yeah.
very very well. Everybody's personalities and who they are as a character.
Yeah.
Uh, everyone's voicing very authentic. So it was so
Thank
as
you.
a Latino, I appreciated that so much. Can you?
Yeah, and we
A
had
little
so
bit?
much flavor to it. I mean, I'm so happy that the director Alejandra Lopez was so kind to let us add some creative choices to the characters because not everything was scripted. You read the script and you're like, okay, this is what's happening. This is my structure. This is my foundation. But as an actor, you have to sell with your voice. So I'm like, okay, this is where I'm gonna breathe. If I'm gonna scream on these next two sentences, I just want to catch air. At one point, I remember going outside the studio, especially some scenes. I mean, I don't want to give out any spoilers, but that I have that I'm being chased by someone, and then I have to like come back and, and say my lines. Like, if I'm like, I have to literally go outside the studio for like 2 minutes, run very quickly, and then come back and say my lines so you can get the best performance possible. And Alejandra was amazing and letting us, be creative and add those little things. And of course, Spanish is so rich. We have so many words, so many different ways to say the same thing. So she was flexible enough to let us add, little ad libs and improvisations here and there. So that was great.
Yeah, because you could be from the same country and not speak the same Spanish. That's what's
Exactly.
interesting.
Exactly. What I say in Mexico is not the same meaning that in Puerto Rico, for example,
Hmm.
or down in Argentina. It's completely different, but they wanted a very neutralized Spanish, Latin America, what they call Mexican accent. So everybody worked to be able to, and that was part of the casting as well. They wanted to make sure you could deliver a neutral Spanish.
Hmm. Yeah, it is a neutral Spanish, but still with enough culture behind it, enough richness to it that it didn't feel forced, and it didn't feel like it feels like they were genuinely doing this for the Latin community, and not kind of as a kind of a token thing to
Right.
it's a big deal.
Yeah, and many people don't know this, but this podcast in particular, it's so rich with the sound effects, and like if you
Hmm.
close your eyes, you can literally just visualize everything that is happening. It's almost like what happened with me after I read, I saw this, I was like, oh my god, that's exactly how I visualized that one scene or that attack or whatever, and they really did a really well job with the production value of it, like the all the foley, all the special effects, the cracking of the fire, the forest, the blades, the water, everything is so rich. So I was very impressed because I was like, I listened to podcasts in the past, but never one that was like this detail or very, well done as this one. So I was like, wow, that's cool to be part of that.
So talking a little bit about that,
Mhm.
about the podcast, it's interesting how kind of tendencies or things come in and out of style, because I have a collection of, for example, Superman radio shows from the 30s,
Wow.
and sometimes I put those in the car while I'm traveling, because I travel back and forth from LA or to the Bay Area all the time, and
Yeah.
it's so cool to hear stories that way. That that's how kids used to do it, or like my mom
Mm.
tells me that they would all gather around a radio in El Salvador and listen to different
Yeah.
stories too.
Yeah.
And here we are again, full circle. Uh,
Exactly.
we're
The
doing it again.
radionovelas started it all. They
Yeah.
would do it, and they would do it live, to my understanding. They would literally have the actors around the same microphone reading the script and someone else in the background doing the sound effects. So of course everybody's like on the radio, like, oh, mira lo que está pasando. Wow, le di una, you know?
Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah.
If you remember War of the Worlds, if people who tuned in late thought it was real.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
so
You
uh
know,
so I yeah, I feel that it's really interesting that now we're coming full circle to podcast, because we're moving so much. We got,
yeah.
yeah, 12 30 1,200 things to do.
Yeah,
but
man.
but so now we can tell good stories like this, that maybe you're not picking up a comic book, but you're definitely tuning in.
Yeah, and nowadays, especially us that live in Los Angeles, we're in traffic. So what better way to be sitting in traffic for like 45 minutes to an hour than listening to a podcast? And
Mhm.
what if it happens to be Marvel, La Larga Noche, with all the effects, so you can just disconnect for a minute, especially everything that's happening right now during the pandemic. I love it. And I've not only because I'm working on a podcast right now, but before that, I was a huge fan of podcasts, just to relax and disconnect. And it's a different outlet than just your
Mhm.
regular social media and your videos and all these things. So it's like, it's very immersive, and I think it's very relaxing and therapeutic in a way.
Yeah, you said it right earlier.
Mhm.
You can imagine it a certain way, because if the production value, like it is on here, that's very
Yeah,
good, then you can see that fire. You can
exactly.
see that in the shadows or the
Yeah,
footsteps.
yeah,
You can sometimes the way that a certain action was depicted, I was like,
yeah.
but my brain's at work.
No,
This
you
is my own head.
exactly. And in this case, the engineers and the mixers did an amazing job, because you can tell, like, oh, I'm screaming for far away. When I was recording, I was like right here in front of the mic. But the way they make it sound, like all those little details make a huge difference. That
Mhm.
honestly, it was like, wow, like, okay,
and and I
I'm
and I
proud
think
of
my
it.
I think my hope is that this podcast does so well that like Marvel and DC and other just comic book entities realize, oh, there is a need in the Latin
Exactly.
community for
Yeah,
more
I
of
want to
this.
get out there. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always saying, give us our superhero, give us our, our
Right.
Black
It's time.
Panther.
It's time. I mean, I'm excited about the new movie Eternals with Salma Hayek and all the
Mhm.
diverse cast. But I want like a Mexican or like a Salvadorian, superhero because we have so much stories. Like, come on, guys, we're here.
Yes.
Put it up there.
100% agree with you. Yeah, so that's what's really exciting. I don't know if you're allowed to tell me, and if not, it's okay. I'm gonna ask anyway. Are
Yeah.
you guys going to do season 2?
Well, as of now, I can say I haven't been approached to do a season 2. I know there's a season 2 for the original podcast out there.
Mhm.
I would love to. I mean, I think that's what we're all striving for because we did such an amazing job, and I know the feedback so far is very positive. So I
Mhm.
really hope that they think, you know what? Well, it did super well. It has a lot of support. They really killed it. Let's do a second season. So I will be down, like on a heartbeat.
Good. I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Ivan, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your insight, and
Thank you.
I'm very excited to share this with everyone so that they could also check out Marvel's Wolverine's La Larga Noche.
Exactly. Check him out. Thank
Yeah,
you so much.
Ivan, it was really nice to meet you again, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Same here, man. Let's keep in touch.
Take
Gracias.
care.